Okay, great. So, welcome, good morning. Really delighted to have everyone here. And wanted actually everybody to sit down. So, we have Jason, Tom, Peter Mackay, Deepak, please. And where's James Machino? There you go. Great. So, first of all, welcome. So, the goal today is to kind of give you an insight into Beyond Performance. First of all, why Beyond Performance, the name Beyond Performance, and why we are so excited to really kickstart this program with Omni LaCosta. So once again, Gary, thanks again for your very generosity. We are really excited to work with you. AJ and Dustin, who are integral part of making this successful, and to all the writers and journalists who are here this weekend. So Beyond Performance, the name started because so much of what we do is outcome related. And everything which is successful is not being attached to outcome. So our goal was to see how do we go beyond the aspect of performance and let the process play out. So the key to any program is really people, process, and platform. So we wanted to bring together the best experts in the world. So when we look at Beyond Performance, we look at the 7 pillars of performance. The number one is living a life which is fulfilling, which is well-being, and living a life in flow. It's not living in flow for a few minutes when you hit a golf shot or a tennis shot or surfing, but living a life in flow. So I'm really excited to have Dr. Deepak Chopra, who is my mentor, and I work with him very closely as part of the Chopra Center and Jayo, a well-being platform, to really provide us the inspiration for the first pillar, which is well-being and flow, and the second pillar, which is the mind-body connection. The second pillar is really looking at psychology, and we have the legendary Tom House with us, really kind of helping us, the psychology of sports, the movement and things like that. The fourth pillar is looking at biomechanics and really understanding the physio aspect of the body, and we have Dr. Peter Mackay. Once again, all these people have basically independent programs of their own, and this is the first time we actually have put together this kind of a team. The next pillar is looking at process and performance, and we have Jason Goldsmith, who's really the person who's championed this, worked with some of the top golfers out there, tennis stars and things like that. And then I think everything we know today is about nutrition. Deepak talks about it. We have 23,000 human genes and 2 million plus microbial genes. So we are what we eat. And we have Dr. James Machino, who's going to be looking at the performance aspect of nutrition. So very quickly, the reason the ethos beyond performance was looking at what we call the pillars of creating awareness. How do we create awareness? If you have awareness, there is transformation. But if there's no awareness, you don't know. So we call it the 5 Ps. And the first one is we can actually predict performance today. We can actually analyze an elite athlete or even a corporate executive. Tom House has worked with thousands of athletes, elite athletes over the years with a star profile. So we can predict performance. Once we can predict performance, the next step is basically establishing a personalized program. Today, everything we do is not a generalized program. It's actually looking at neurogenomics. We're looking at the actual DNA analysis, the genetic analysis, and providing you with a very personalized nutrition program. Our fitness programs are not general. It's not like I'm 47 years old. This is, I go actually fit into a routine. It's working with Peter and Tom and Jason on a very prescriptive program, which is personalized to the individual. And this is very unique. The third pillar is really coming up with a very structured process, the third P. And that's what Jason's focus all about. When you have the personalization, the prediction, the personalization, the process, the most important thing to scale is a platform. And this is where we're actually looking at technology, metrics, and things like that to really provide a scalable platform. So when you all go back into your communities, you're working with your local golf pro, your coach, your club, we can actually bring this program to it, which is platforming. And the last one is participation. How do we kind of bring about behavior change and engagement with athletes and anybody who loves golf? So those are the 5 Ps of what we are doing with this program. And this is the first time I'm super excited to be curating and working with everybody. And my focus is bringing technology and tools to really bring about transformation. So we are, one of the biggest things I think we all would agree as an athlete is really looking at inflammation. Anybody been in pain, back pain, some pain? Some people have been in pain all parts, anytime. Pain in the body, pain in the mind. So everybody talks about the perfect swing, but let's say you had an argument with your spouse or partner and you're just about to get on the course, you need to be able to manage the inflammation which is now happening. So what we have done is that we are curating, I don't know, Patricia, we are given them grounding mats.
You'll get them afterwards?
Sorry?
Afterwards, I didn't want
Afterwards,
to
okay. So we are working on some very innovative technology. If you play golf bare feet, you probably feel pretty good walking on the grass, right? Or on the beach. So your human body is like a battery. We're connected up and we're connected down. When we discharge positive ions in the body, we reduce inflammation. So best thing is that if you are wearing shoes all day and you're working in New York, we actually have technology today which are called grounding mats. You can actually put it on your mattress and sleep. When you get up in the morning, you'll actually feel a lot less chronic pain. This was actually built as for the athletes at Tour de France. When they basically cycled all day, they had patches on their body which was basically grounded to a terminal. This is some of the innovation. The second innovation we want to showcase today, not enough time, is with the FocusBand. So basically biofeedback. When Deepak talks about living in flow between the frequency of 7.5 hertz and 8 hertz, which is called the alpha theta boundary, is basically flow states. How do we then use EEG technology to understand when you are in a state of flow and understand the perfect shot? So this is an example in biofeedback technology. We're also working with some technology over there called the Deepak Chopra Dream Weaver. People typically today have an issue with sleep. Sleep is a big challenge, especially if you're thinking a lot, sleeping is a problem. So we have actually worked with some of the most innovative technology in brainwave entrainment using photoic stimulation. And the last one, the number one brand in the world is meditation. And that's Dr. Chopra. And we have curated an entire library of content. And that's all I'm going to say. There's not enough time. But without much ado, I want to basically have Dr. Chopra share, first of all, his wisdom, his book, Golf for Enlightenment. He's been the kind of the compass behind this whole program to really bring the mind-body aspect. If you all don't know, he's written over 85 books. 22 of them are New York Times bestsellers. And more than that, I think he's really pushing the envelope with really looking at inflammation, some of those things. And the last part before I wrap up, the big aspect of why we came together as a team is to give back to the community. We realize that children in schools today, PE programs are going away. There's absolutely no play. Technology is taking over. And we need to use sports and play as a way to create. We are super connected, but very lonely. We have not evolved besides the 10 fingers and 10 toes. We need this kind of interaction. So a big component is actually, as part of Beyond Performance Sports, is to give back to the community. Working with schools, giving back a part of this program to schools. So I'll be around for more questions to get into more details, but I want to pass it on to Deepak. Take it from here. Thanks, Deepak.
Thank you, Puransha. So Gary, once again, I want to thank you for being our gracious host and partner, and everyone else at LaCosta Spa and Resort, thank you. As I was looking at this, I realized that mind-body connection may not be the most appropriate phrase, because body and mind are one, and there's no connection. Wherever a thought goes, there's a molecule following it, and wherever a molecule goes, there's a thought following it. So just like we use space-time as one entity, mass energy as another entity, and body-mind should be one phrase. So anyway, we'll revisit the mind-body connection. But the second thing is about beyond performance. That's very appropriate, because one of the biggest problems that athletes have, or for that matter anybody trying to perform, is performance anxiety. Performance anxiety interferes with performance. And performance anxiety is always about the outcome and not the process. So when you're focused on the outcome, you get away from the process. And peak experiences are actually getting the mind out of the way. The mind is the problem. If you're thinking too much, and any athlete will tell you this, that their game is ruined if they're thinking. And when you talk to athletes who are used to peak performance and also peak experiences, whether it's Kobe Bryant, and many years ago in another incarnation, I was very close to Joe Namath when he was the biggest star in the country. And he used to tell me that there were moments when he would know where to go even though the ball hadn't been thrown in that direction, that everything seemed in slow motion. And it seemed like he wasn't playing, that the game was playing him. That even though the crowds were making a huge noise, in his mind everything had silenced. There was silence because his internal dialogue had disappeared. And this is now in the 80s, 70s, 80s. I don't remember the exact dates when we had these conversations, but they're somewhere on YouTube or somewhere. But that got me very interested in flow states, and I realized that flow state is a state where your sense of individual self is gone. It's just the game. You and the game are one experience. Number two, there is no sense of time. Number three, there's enormous richness of experience. I mean, just look at the richness around you in color and just form and fragrance and smell. The senses are completely alive. And number four, there's total effortless spontaneity. That's what a peak performance is, whether it's throwing a ball in a hoop or the most amazing swing you can have. Now, Punacha mentioned the prerequisites for that, and those have to do with some of the things you mentioned: good sleep, not being stressed, not having arguments with your wife or spouse or whoever, staying in good condition, optimal weight. It's very interesting, but weight is a very good sign of whether everything else is also in balance. So exercise, nutrition, and we know a lot about nutrition now based on looking at the microbiome of the gut. You can actually predict which foods are optimal for a person, totally personalized. And we want to go in that direction with all our experts. Want to go in that direction to personalize diet and food and sleep patterns, and then all this wonderful technology, whether it's the FocusBand, which allows you to see what happens in your brain when you're in peak states and peak performance, but also grounding as a technology. And while you were speaking, while these grounding mats are amazing, I think since we can't play golf bare feet, we should be looking at grounding shoes. And that's the next thing that's going to happen, that your shoes will ground to the earth even as you're playing, okay, which will decrease inflammation. Punacha mentioned inflammation, chronic inflammation, as the underlying factor in almost every chronic illness, and now we know this for a fact. Only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant, which means the mutations, which are the genetic errors that cause disease, they're totally predictable. But that's only 5%, and doesn't matter what disease you're looking at: cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune illness. Only 5% of genetic mutations predicted illness. The rest are related in one way or another to a chronic low-grade inflammation. So we can, by decreasing inflammation, you can actually not only prevent these chronic illnesses, you can reverse them. And that's 95%. This is a new movement. You go on the internet and look at all the data on chronic inflammation, low-grade inflammation. it's astounding, and it's actually quite distressing that this is not being handled on a massive scale. Everything from war to terrorism to social interactions to personal relationships is ultimately connected to inflammation in the body-mind. So the body-mind, anger, hostility, grievances, resentments, fear, they all cause inflammation. And of course, there are physical causes of inflammation too, including food that has contaminants, like hormones and chemicals and so on. So using sports as an entry to understanding not only flow states is the only way to actually improve health and well-being. Some of you know that yoga and mindfulness are becoming very popular in schools, but there's a resistance because, yoga and mindfulness and meditation are thought to be esoteric, maybe Eastern, connected to religion. With sports, you don't have that problem. And with sports, especially when it's tied to technology, there's no problem at all because there's instant feedback and you know what your brain is doing, your body is doing, and you can learn to anchor an experience to performance without worrying about the performance. So many athletes will tell you they'll remember their best shots, they'll remember their best performance, and even the memory of that will reproduce the experience. And that's what we can do with the new technologies. You can actually anchor the memory with the validation of that memory with what's happening in your brain, what's happening in your heart rate variability, etc. So technology is going to be a big ally in this, and that's why Jason Goldsmith has been using FocusBand. We are now using grounding mats, and there's more to come with technology. So that you're going to talk about the technology. Okay. Final words. Beyond performance means getting the mind out of the way. No resistance, no regrets, no anticipation. Just this moment as it is, and that's flow. Thank you.
So, Deepa gets his coffee. By the way, this is kind of interactive. It's not, we're sitting here, but any questions, feel free to ask. It's not a one-way conversation. In the interest of time, we had to kind of do this format. And the next person, I guess, Tom, you don't need an introduction, but yes, Peter? Okay, Peter.
Are we live? Just the resonance of that voice is healing. That's amazing. I mean, to be sitting here and getting that. I've got the easy job up here. I'm the mechanic. I'm the guy in the pit crew that makes sure your wheels are aligned and your alignment's set and you're ready for action. So I've got the easy job. But over the last few years, my practice has moved into the area of functional neurology. And we can, pardon? A little closer. We can no longer deny the fact that the physical biomechanics is not the real driving force when it comes to how you perform and how your body heals. Deepak alluded to the smell in the air, our five senses: hearing, smelling, seeing, tasting, touching. And one of the things that we're totally unaware of, and that I find, I put people in my clinic in a position they have no idea where they are. They're lost in space. We have a Navy SEAL here. I had a Navy SEAL in a few weeks ago, put him on a force plate, and he had 70% of his weight on the right side of his body. And so I proceeded to put him in neutral, like I would with most patients. He had 3 back surgeries, a dislocated hip, and a broken neck. When I put him in a neutral position, he said, "Peter, that gives me sciatica right away." And I said, "Okay, that tells me a lot." We now know that his optimum position is not neutral. So when I look at a patient, I try to figure out what is their pattern. Everybody sitting here today has a pattern that's unique to them. So my job is awareness. I have to try to teach you to be aware of where you are in space and where perhaps you should be to be more functional. And as I said, that goes way beyond the physical feel of muscles or tension or flexibility. When we look at fitness, alignment, posture, balance, mobility, stability, coordination, strength, and endurance. I guarantee you most of the people in this audience today have enough strength to play golf. Their foundations, though, on the other hand, as we're going to hear later, and the sequencing are going to be the critical factors. So in my world, awareness first. Where do we want to take this patient? How do we want them to be able to form in a more optimum state of flow? And what I really think is happening in the world of athletics is, I saw a book recently, and mathematics caught my eye. I opened it up in the airport, and it was How Not to Be Wrong. And I thought, wait a minute, I might not be able to get back through the front door with that, you know. I get accused of sometimes wanting to be right. So the mathematics caught me. And there was an analogy in this book that talked about during the Second World War, they had statisticians that looked at what was happening to the airplanes, and they saw that they'd be riddled with bullets. And so they would see that the front end of the plane would be riddled with bullets, the back end of the plane would be riddled with bullets. So they said, we need to put more armor in those parts of the plane. But that's not the truth. We have what's going on here is the survivor bias. You know where the planes that were going down were getting hit? In the engine. And it only took one bullet. And so what I see happening on the horizon with golfers, for example, is that we have a survivor bias. We look at the guys that are up on stage on a Saturday with the trophy, and we say, oh, look how big he is. Look how strong he is. Look how mentally tough he is. But what we should be looking at is the guys that aren't surviving, because they do not have the flow. They do not have the mental capacity to perform in that anxiety state. And one of the things I love about Jason's work is, 2 weeks ago, I walked across a bed of fire. Punasha trains fire walkers, everybody wants to learn. And before I went out, I thought I was cheating, because I went in my room, I put on the FocusBand for about 3 minutes, I was right in the motion, I said, I'm ready to go. I walked on the bed of fire, I walked twice. So I said to the guy running it, next year come to Del Mar, we'll get some paddle boards and I'll take you out to look for great white sharks. He said, no, we'll just stick with the fire walking, right? Anyway, I'm really happy to be here today. I'm excited about this program because I think it's going places that we've never really gone. We can integrate with the more traditional teaching techniques, and hopefully we are going to be an asset to them. And I think we're going to let James and I go back 40 years, and he's helped me with my personal health in ways that I can't be appreciative enough. He's unbelievable. And he walks his talk. He's got the blood chemistry of a 20-year-old. So take it away, James.
Thank you, Peter. I can't talk sitting down very well. Do you mind if I stand up? Is that okay? So I was asked to talk to you about nutritional aspects of athletic performance, and I thought you were going to walk the course today, so I prepared a breakfast for an athlete who's going to walk a golf course. Apparently you're taking carts. So maybe I'll just explain how this all comes together. But there's a growing awareness that targeted nutritional strategies can enhance athletic performance really on 3 levels. And the first level is that athletes are often training in behind the scenes. And the right nutritional strategies can help them gain lean mass, explosive power, endurance, speed endurance, some of the qualities they're often looking for, as well as to help with repair and also to keep their immune system stronger. As athletes who train hard often weaken their immune system. They have more upper respiratory tract infections than non-athletes. But there's ways to safeguard against that so they stay healthy. They don't want to have a cold the day of the game, the week of the game. They don't want to slow their training down. And also to decrease muscle inflammation and muscle damage from the workout itself. So nutritional aspects can complement fitness training in terms of the things behind the scene. And secondly, the right nutritional strategies can significantly extend the years that a person can remain competitive. The aging process is going to do what it does. You're going to have a decline in your anabolic hormones over time, testosterone growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor 1, and it leads to your body breaks down its muscles mass slowly over time. It eats it up as a source of energy. You lose power, you lose strength, you lose endurance. But it doesn't have to happen. In the old days, they would just take steroids, which you can't do anymore. But the right nutritional strategies can help to preserve lean mass. It can reverse many aspects of the aging process and keep an athlete more competitive for a longer period of time. And that needs to be brought forward in a stronger way. And it should really start with younger athletes as well. And the third aspect of nutritional intervention is with respect to what happens on the game day, on the tournament day. Let's say you were going to walk the course today. I worked with the chef to design a breakfast today that would be the meal you would have 3 to 4 hours before a game or a competition. Even in the game of golf, if you're walking the course, it's a 5-mile walk. So who can tell me what would be the nutritional principles you would adhere to on game day 3 to 4 hours prior to teeing off? Any volunteers? Chris? That would be one of the things. You want to keep your fat low, which I'll explain in a second, yeah? Okay, yeah. There's avocados there. Absolutely. Yeah, so actually a combination of complex and simple, because after you slept all night, your liver's carbohydrate fuel tank is half depleted. And when you start walking that golf course and using your body, your muscles and your tissues are going to use up the remaining part of those carbohydrates, and your brain runs 100% on carbohydrate energy, blood sugar. And as soon as it drops just 10% in your blood sugar, even if you're not hypoglycemic yet, your ability to concentrate and focus decreases significantly. Decision making becomes much more irrational. And so all athletes know that what they want to do 3 to 4 hours before is rebuild that liver's carbohydrate fuel tank. It'll release the carbs minute by minute while you're out on the course and maintain optimal blood sugar and allow the brain in the game of golf to stay focused and to be able to concentrate. You also do want some protein, and you want protein that has all the essential amino acids and a lot of leucine, which is a particular amino acid, because when you're out there doing any kind of work, your body will break down its lean mass as a source of energy. It's breaking down muscle protein that is your structure. And if you put protein in prior, your muscles or your tissues will use that protein instead. It'll preserve your lean mass even while you're out doing the work, so you don't break down your lean mass and lose power over time. And you want to have a lower fat diet before you go out to do an athletic contest, because fat slows down the emptying of food from the stomach into the intestinal tract. You don't want to slow that process down. You want to get those nutrients into the bloodstream, replenish the liver's carbohydrate stores, get the amino acids in the bloodstream, so you've got optimal performance ready to go 3 hours later. Now, 30 minutes before you go out to play, would caffeine be a good idea? A cup of coffee? What do you think? Well, if you're someone who reacts badly to coffee and you get the jitters, that wouldn't be a great thing for you. But for most of us, what it'll do is it'll get fat cells to release fat into the bloodstream, and muscles love to burn fat. Muscles will burn fat if they can get access to it. And if they're burning fat, it slows down the burning of your muscles' carbohydrate stores. You get more of your carbohydrates that you ate will be preserved. Your brain can use it. Your muscles can use it. Your muscles, while you're doing a low to moderate activity, will be happy to burn fat, so you preserve your carbohydrate stores. And you know, you have to have water before you go out to exercise. But how much water would you have on a day like this, where it's fairly warm, there's some relative humidity? It's 20 minutes before you go out to play. You want to hyperhydrate. How many fluid ounces would be suggested by the International Society of Sports Nutrition? Anybody? 13 to 20 ounces of water 20 minutes before. Because while you're out there walking around, with golf, you have this insensible type of perspiration. You don't really feel it because it's not a high-intensity sport, but you're still losing a half a liter to a liter of water per hour out on that golf course through evaporation, respiration, conduction, convection, radiation. And as your blood volume drops down, if your total body water is down just 2%, your performance drops, your concentration drops, and it can lead, of course, to heat prostration over time. So while you're out on the course, how many ounces of water would you have every 10 to 15 minutes on a day like this, roughly, to stay hydrated? 5 to 8 ounces of water for the first 90 minutes, and then by then your carbohydrate stores are being depleted. Your brain's going to suffer from a carbohydrate deficit. You start using sports drinks, 5 to 8 ounces of Gatorade, Powerade, something like that. Now, why would you have Gatorade instead of a soft drink like Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew or 7-Up? Why would you use a sports drink instead of something like that? The first reason is because those sodas have a 12% carbohydrate concentration, and the sports drinks are down at 6.8. And if the sugar level's too high, it slows down the absorption of water from the gut into the bloodstream, and you risk dehydration. But at 6 to 8% concentration of carbs, it still allows water to be absorbed into the bloodstream, and you get the carbohydrate push to maintain your carbohydrate status so the brain and muscles get access to it. And it also has some sodium. And sodium will actually help to keep water in the body so you don't urinate so much and lose that water volume. When the event is over today, what would be the most ideal thing to do? Should you stop? Should you wait 2 hours before you eat, or should you eat immediately after you finished the tournament? What would be the ideal thing to do? Do you eat first, or do you wait? Let your body metabolize and come down to a resting metabolic state and then eat, or do you eat right away? Eat right away. The first 2 hours after a competitive event, your enzymes are cued to take the carbohydrates you eat and reload that glycogen fuel tank, that carbohydrate fuel tank, so that when you go out tomorrow to play again, you've got maximum replenishment. You also need protein to rebuild the lean mass that you broke down, support your immune system, to keep hydrating beyond the level of thirst. While you're out exercising, by the way, thirst is not a good indicator of fluid needs. Most people underestimate their fluid needs during an activity. So you need to hydrate yourself along the way and then afterwards, and also with a little bit more salt than you would normally have to get back the sodium, because there's sodium chloride lost in sweat. So one last thing, can you use alcohol as a beverage to enhance your athletic performance? Peter, no comment from you. What alcohol does, even though it's fluids, is it encourages hypoglycemia. It actually drives your blood sugar down by inhibiting the synthesis of glucose in your liver. And it also converts the food that you just ate into fat. So if you ate great carbs, they're not going to your liver to be carbohydrates. They go into your liver, they're getting converted to fat, they go into your fat cells, and they're making you fatter. And that does not help athletic performance. And the third thing, of course, is that it inhibits antidiuretic hormones. So you urinate more, you're losing more water. So alcohol is a serious detriment to athletic performance, and of course it's a neurotoxin damaging brain cells. So these are just some of the tidbits, but normally when you have an athlete, you want to look at their entire profile, understand the sport they're playing, and their blood profile, and do a complete workup, and then you have to customize this right down to the number of grams of things that they would actually ingest, and the timing, and based on the type of training that they're doing. So that's what customized, targeted nutritional strategies really look like in the modern era. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you. It's my great honor to introduce.
I'm going to introduce Tom quickly.
But
But before I do that, since it's interactive, I want to kind of introduce a big shout out to Chris Senog, who's the Navy SEAL there. But what's interesting is that truly our goal is to bring a lot of experts into this program when appropriate. But he actually wrote the Navy SEAL Sniper Manual, and along with that, he's a meditator. So he basically says meditation's what he uses with, followed some of the books with Deepak, grateful for the service to the nation. But moving on forward, the highlight of this, and I always, Tom, legendary pitching coach, is pretty much trained every major athlete, and actually is one of the person I really love to hang out with. So it's one of those, my meetings with Tom start off with 5 minutes. Tom, I want to speak to you 5 minutes. Typically 5 hours later, we are still hanging out. So Tom, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's really fun to be sitting here. I want to be considered the old coach, because I am. The bottom line, Beyond Performance is about you. The extension hasn't been thrown out there, but Beyond Performance is about you. And we're going to call it personally adaptive. There's a million things out there, but there's only one you, and we are going to cross-specifically personally adapt everything we're doing to you. The marriage of technology and the human beings, you can't quantify the spirit that Deepak talks about. We're losing that. So our goal, where we're sitting right here as a group, is to keep humanity human while technology enters into it. It's not a confrontation, it's a collaboration. And the group sitting in front of you right now is gonna make a difference with that collaboration. We're gonna humanize technology. Okay, is anybody old enough to remember what Cliff Notes are? Okay, if you don't know what a Cliff Note is, just go to Siri and ask her. She'll take care of you. All right, now just thought processes real quick. This is going to be random. I only have 12 minutes to get a 4-hour talk done, so we're going to be crisp here. Sitting is the new smoking. I want you to put, if you're writing, write it down. Sitting, I know, is the new smoking. I'll cut you a break today. But one of the biggest issues we have in our society today, there's too much sit and not enough do. All right, now, with that in mind, I want you to put in your head that human beings literally could be really smart if they didn't think. There's a phrase in German, I can't remember what it is, but your body's not dumb if you let it be smart. That's what we're going to be after today. I'm going to set up some cliff notes about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. And then we're actually going to warm you up to loosen you up to go play golf. How many of you swing a golf club to get loose? Raise your hand. If you swing a golf club to get loose, it's like a quarterback throwing a football to get warm. The stress you put on your body when you swing a golf club and you're not warmed up to loosen up is actually wearing and tearing every one of your joints. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of cliff notes that's going to help you as much as I can with words so you can go do it physically. The greatest right we have as human beings is the right to change our mind. What's the hardest thing for a human being to do? Change their mind. So the only way any of you sitting here today is going to change what you do is if there's a compelling reason for you to do it. That's what this group is in front of you for today. We hope to be the compelling reason that you make a change in your life. And it's just, even if it's just one at a time, you've got to start the process by making change. An object at rest wants to do what? We've got to overcome the inertia of nothing and start moving. Take a step. Just do something to change where you are right now. Okay, let me tell you what we're going to change. The body is a system that's bilateral, that's accelerated by more muscle groups than it's decelerated. So when we go through today in our warm-up, if you're taking notes or just listening, on the upper body, 3 muscle groups accelerate your upper body, 2 muscle groups decelerate. On the bottom half, 4 muscle groups accelerate your legs, 2 muscle groups decelerate your legs. We're going to take you through a little warm-up process where we will address those ratios, and you will ask yourself in a 15-minute warm-up, how long do we have? In 15 minutes, I will prepare every cell in your body to move forward and backward functionally when you're swinging your golf club. Okay? If you're stiff and sore on any joints on the front side of your body, it's a movement problem. We have now the capacity through what we call three-dimensional motion analysis to address human movement for the first time at 1,000 frames a second in 3 dimensions. The biggest issue with my generation of coach is what we thought we were seeing. And most of the important things in a golf swing, a throw, a swing, whatever it might be, take place in 0.25 seconds. 8 things in a golf swing take place in 0.25 seconds. Your eyes lie to you. So what we're going to do today is we're actually in our process going through our warm-up to loosen up. We're going to take you through what those movements are slowly so your nerves can start talking to muscle. When your nerves and muscles are talking efficiently, then you can develop skills. Now you need to understand something here. There are windows of trainability. I'm going to push, just like this was a Tom Brady console. There's 4 windows of trainability. There's a neurological window, there's a muscle window, there's a skill acquisition window, and a skill retention window. As I look at this audience, most of you are in skill retention. Now, Michael, do you mind if I bring something up? You know, you and I had a chance to have some fun yesterday. He is not ready. If he was palling around with me for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I wouldn't worry about his skill. We have to repattern his nervous system with his current state of musculature to actually have them talk to each other to get the most out of your swing. He said something, I went home and wrote it down after our little hands-on for about 15 minutes. He walked up and he said, my body wants to keep going. I wrote that down. Remember what I said, your body's not smart, not dumb if you let it be smart? 90 trillion cells in his body were going, whoa, this is something that I either remember from a younger time or what I need to do now. Awareness, what Deepak just said, we don't know what we don't know. And most of us are wandering around in a fog of what used to be. No. about now is becoming aware of what you personally adaptive need to go out and be a good golfer, a good husband, a good person in a society that's a whole lot of negative. You are in charge of you. Okay, so what did I just say in the red shirt? You're wearing the red shirt, you're up front. Who's in charge of you? And if you don't take advantage of it, who's to blame? All right, so here's the challenge. We're going to throw some stuff. We're going to give you a smorgasbord. You can go pick whatever you want out of that smorgasbord, but you got to pick something every day. Otherwise, if you're treading water, you're done. This world is moving forward. I heard the youth of the world is our only hope. Right now, if we can take what we have to end user families, younger than 12 years old, all right, and give them what we're giving our elite guys at $15,000, $20,000 a day, put it to a mom and a dad and access it on their cell phone, that's how we collaborate with technology. And the thing that I'm most thrilled about, sitting with these people up here, we are taking measurables, we're quantifying them, we're delivering them and defending them with science, with all the body-mind stuff that nobody's ever going to be able to quantify. And by putting those two things together and getting it to young, now we've got a society, a worldwide community that's moving forward without the crap that we're going through right now. That's the challenge. If you leave today and you're not better at something, mentally, physically, nutritionally, or biomechanically, it's your fault. Are we good? How's that for the challenge? No, I'm serious. And we're going to love you no matter what. We're going to love you a lot more when you're producing. That's conditional acceptance. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's good. Five. Mike, 5. There we go. I got it. Okay. So, obviously Tom inspired us, and we noticed that there was a couple underlying themes. One was awareness, and the other was process. So how many of you are frustrated when you're on the golf course? Just raise your hands. Yeah. How many of you have experienced fear on the golf course? Okay, and then the last question, well, maybe not the last, but the last one in this series. How many of you are overthinking when you're on the golf course? Catch yourself. Al, didn't we have this conversation earlier? Right? So what happens when you're on the golf course and you have an outcome that you didn't expect?
Like I told you, it just takes like 1 or 2 screws. Literally done.
So for those of you who can't hear Al, it's 1 or 2 unwanted outcomes, and then he's in his head thinking about golf swing. So it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein, which is, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So right up until that unwanted outcome that Al had, he was playing golf. And then right after he hit that errant shot, he was thinking golf. So I think Deepak said it earlier when he said, the object of all of this is not to think about playing golf. It's actually just to play golf. Would you agree? Okay, fantastic. So what we're going to try to do is share with you some of the technology that Henry and his dad, Graham, invented in Australia, because they were working with some very elite golfers. And for all intents and purposes, those elite golfers should be performing at the highest level, and they weren't. So there was nothing available on the market that allowed us to see what was going on in the athlete's mind while they were performing. And so FocusBand was born. And so what FocusBand is it's the world's first in-motion EEG system. So what does that mean? Right? Your brain emits frequency, the FocusBand receives that frequency via Bluetooth and transmits it to your phone and gives you feedback. And the fastest way to learn is neurofeedback. And so that's what we do. So we started about 5 years ago on the PGA Tour, and we were really fortunate to get hooked up with some elite level players. Jason Day being the one that really spent a lot of time with us in the beginning. We did 3 full years of witnessing every single tournament shot that he hit, and developing this process. And through that experience working with those elite level athletes, eventually it led us to Tom at USC, and then we were able to start working with some of Tom's athletes, so baseball and football players, and then the tennis team got involved, and then basketball teams, and then Olympic track and field, and it just kind of snowballed after that. But if we go back a second, what FocusBand does is it gives you insight as to what's going on in your mind while you perform an action. So direct and immediate feedback as to, were you thinking or were you doing? And that's it. So if you know when you're thinking and you're aware of the thoughts that are causing the negative commentary, and then you're aware, you spend time developing your awareness, then we can eliminate those negative thoughts if we create a process. And that's what we did. So with Jason Day's help, we created what we call a blueprint. And I think it was the first time that a mental process was used in conjunction with a physical process. And be happy to share with you guys what the blueprint looks like. But for golfers, essentially what happens is you approach the ball and you want to get into a neutral state. And we teach how to get your brain into the performance state. We use the word mushin, which is Japanese for mind of no-mindedness, which allows you to perform at your athletic highest level. So as you approach the ball, we want you to get into this state so that when you're going through your decision-making process, you make a good decision. And those of you that watch golf on TV probably recognize Jason Day's routine. It's probably the most noticeable, famous golf routine on tour. And that's what we develop with him, is this process of moving his awareness in front of his eyes. So does anybody besides Chris, the Navy SEAL, have an idea of why you want to move your awareness in front of your eyes? It eliminates doubt. So basically what it does is it keeps your conscious mind full of relevant information so that when you're ready to pull the trigger or hit the shot, your awareness is on what you want it to be on. So if we all take a second, I want you to pick something out in front of you on the table. So a cup, a glass of water, something on the table in front of you. Okay, and that's going to represent the ball. All right, and then if you're a right-handed golfer, I want you to look to your left and pick out something around you that's going to represent the target that you're going to hit that imaginary ball to. Okay, so everybody has that. I want everybody to start with their eyes and awareness on the target. On the target, Al. On the target, Al, not the ball. No, that's the ball, Al. On the target. Okay, there we go. Okay, so eyes and awareness are on the target. I want you to leave your eyes on the target and move your awareness only to the ball. Now let your eyes go to the ball. Now leave your eyes on the ball and move your awareness to the target. Now let your eyes go to the target. Leave your eyes there. Awareness to the ball. Eyes to the ball. Now everybody close their eyes. Imagine where that target is in space and point your finger to that target. Now check yourself. Might be useful for golf. Right? So what did that do, right? That kept your conscious mind occupied. but you knew exactly where your target was in space. So, you know, everything that we're doing, we're trying to create visuals that allow your body to create sensations, to go back to what Tom was talking about earlier, to allow you to be the best athlete that you can be, right? Take the conscious mind that has no business involved in the action out of the equation, you know, because like Al said, that's the only thing that changes his golf game as he starts to think about it. So if the conscious mind's out of the equation, you know, then you can perform. So that's what FocusBand does. It allows you to create this state that you can train to using neurofeedback, so that we can create a process that allows you to be your best athlete. So rather than ending, I'm a big story guy. And the reason why I love to hang out with Tom House is he tells me stories all the time. And these stories I relate to. And I know that anybody that spends time with Tom relates to these stories. So I have one favorite story that I'm going to ask him to tell that is so relevant to what we're all talking about as far as awareness. And yeah. So Tom, take it away.
Am I on? Turn me on here. Okay, that's for Marie. Remember that. Turn me on here. All right. I got validation yesterday just listening to Deepak talk. And did I hear properly, like millions of years ago, the storyteller in the community was the HMFWIC. I'll let you draw your own conclusions there. The storyteller, how many years ago? Okay, good. 20,000 years ago, the storyteller was the big guy on campus in the village. All right, I've told stories my whole life without realizing that we were actually learning moments with the people involved. So Nolan Ryan was the perfect time between sport, play, and technology where we started to realize they could help each other. I've been blessed in my coaching career to be involved with Hall of Fame athletes in baseball, football, and golf. And the only smart thing I did when they said something that I didn't understand, I wrote it down. And what's turning out as we get further and further into what beyond performance is these guys knew what they were doing, and now we are actually quantifying what they did. So Nolan would say, leave me alone till I line it up. I don't ever see who's hitting. I don't see the plate. I don't see the umpire. I see the target. Nolan Ryan spent 27 years in the big leagues throwing to a glove. He never knew who was hitting. He said, Tom, because I throw what I want to throw. Where I want to throw it, they ain't going to hit it no ways. All right, so the story that Jason loves. Nolan Ryan, on the day he threw his 7th no-hitter, he's 44 years old. He's got a bad knee and a bad back. It's Texas, hot Texas, 100 degrees in the shade, humidity 92%. He goes through his warming up, loosening up process. He's huffing and puffing, and it's ugly. I'm watching him. He gets to the mound. He looks at me and says, shut up. I said, okay, I can do that. So he throws a few fast. Now you guys are laughing. If you know Nolan, can you shut up till I line it up? I got your text. Just let it go. So about 5-10 pitches into his bullpen, I panic, and I go to the dugout bullpen phone, and I call the dugout. And I said, Bobby, it's not good. I don't think he's going to go to post today. And literally just when I finished that, Nolan picked up his coat and his glove, and he walked into the clubhouse. I thought he quit. So I hustled down to the dugout, and I said, Bobby, he left. What are we going to do? He said, I don't know, but we got national anthem in 4 minutes. We better do something. I said, you get Barfield up. I'll go find out what's going on. So I'm going up the bowels of the stadium, and I see his legs. I see Nolan coming down the tunnel. So I know he's going to make the game. He did not make the national anthem. Did not make the national anthem, but he goes out after the national anthem, does these warm-up tosses. In the first inning, 13 pitches, 3 strikeouts, velocity on the scoreboard. Worst pitch he threw was 95. He hit a couple of 97s. So he comes and he sits down right next to me on the bench, and I'm going, Nolan, what the hell's going on, buddy? He said, Tom, I don't know, but this is one of them our days. He looks down the bench, he goes, "Boys!" And everybody stops because Nolan's talking. He said, "Get me one. It's all I'm going to need today." Now, I sat back and shivered because I got some job security now. I was worried about getting fired 10 minutes ago. He said, "Get me one. It's all I'm going to need today." And then he sat back and went to wherever flow goes. All right, 9 innings, 16 strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits. So after the game, stationary bike, media, 7 no-hitters, 6 different catchers, special. So we hung around. We were the last ones to leave the stadium. We're walking toward the parking lot. And I said, "Nolan, help me out. What the heck happened today? Why did you walk off the bullpen mound?" He said, "Tom, it weren't getting no better in the bullpen. Had to be better in the game." Now, I pitched in the big leagues, marginal to poor for 9 years, but consistently marginal to poor. So I understand a good bullpen and a good game. Sometimes you can have a great bullpen and a bad game and vice versa. But he didn't panic about his bullpen because he knew it had to be better in the game. And this is what Jason loves the most. And then he said something that I wrote down and I give to whenever I'm talking to kids. He said, "And besides, I've done everything I could possibly do to prepare for today's game. If I hadn't wanted to work, I shouldn't have hired out." And he drives away. So I'm sitting in the car and I go, "I got to write that down. What the hell was he talking about?" It's everything you heard from the people in front of you right now. Process is the reason for good outcome. You're going to have good and bad outcomes, but don't quantify outcome. Too many variables you can't control. What did Nolan say to himself when most of us would have panicked? Done everything I could possibly do, and if I hadn't wanted to work, I shouldn't have hired out. All the Hall of Famers that I'm dealing with have a variation on that theme. They're more concerned about process than outcome. They have short memories. They don't remember the last pitch. They remember this pitch. They're working on this pitch because they can't control what was. They're controlling what is. If you can get anything from that and what you're hearing today, then you've done your job. It's about you and personally adapting, each one of you, with the information and your instruction you're getting to make a difference, make a change. We need to be a compelling reason, but only if you get over the inertia of staying still. Are we good? God bless all of you.
Just to wrap it up, Gary, where are you? So you're witnessing the birth of something new in sports, and that's because this is an amazing team. And there's something in the literature called emergence these days. Emergence is something happens that never existed before. Something is created that never existed before. And when you look at the science of emergence, it's to get people that have different skill sets, different talents, and they're all unique in their own field, but you get them together. Maximum diversity. Keep the system open and responsive to feedback. Have a higher vision. Connect spiritually and emotionally, which we have already, and then let it happen. It's going to happen. So Beyond Performance is going to be the premier brand in sports, and it all began here. Thank you, and thank you, and it's very exciting. And thank you, Punacha, for bringing us all together, and for creating Jayo, because all this is going to be also brought to you through our app, and that's jayo.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and we're very grateful that you're here.
Actually, we can open it up. So I think we have some time, so we just make it interactive. So we won't be sitting here. We can just mingle. Would that be a good use of time? Or Q&A? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I think what we are working on right now is we have, working with LaCosta Omni, we're going to have a 3-day and a 5-day immersive program. So it's going to be a resident